Hi, everyone, and welcome again to another spooky podcast about Japan. So, before we get started, I do want to point out that we are going to be talking about Aokigahara, also known as the suicide forest. I will be treating this subject with as much sensitivity as I possibly can. I understand that suicide is a issue in Japan, and it is something that affects many of us around the world. That is why I'm going to do a short 10-second stop frame and include the suicide hotline number for here in the United States. If you or if anyone that you know is currently going through some very, very hard times, which many of us are right now, please talk to them. Or if you don't know how to handle the situation, just give them the number. I'll have it out on the screen so that they can talk to someone about it, because suicide is never the option. It will get better. It just, at that moment, you're stuck in a very dark place, and I understand. But please call the hotline. I'll leave the number right here for you guys. So, before we get started, I do want to talk a little bit about Aokigahara. Um, it is located in the center of Yamanashi Prefecture off the foothills of Mount Fuji. Um, the area is synonymously known for something very dark. Um, Usually, when people go here, it's not for the best intentions. Lately, they've been trying to revamp the image of Aokigahara. They've been trying to not focus so much on it being known as Suicide Forest. They've been trying to do initiatives where people go there and they do poetry in the forest, or they do like a nature watch, or they're just trying to change the image that the forest has gained over recent years. But yeah, I'm just going to talk a little bit about it, since there is a lot of lore and behind the forest, and I want to go more into detail about that than the suicides. So, Aokigahara, also known as the Sea of Trees, is actually kind of a dangerous area to go and explore. And that's mostly because when you look at pictures of Aokigahara online, you notice that the ground itself isn't leveled. It's bumpy, there's crags, it just looks weird, it looks different. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that it's actually lava, like hardened lava that the trees are just growing from, because it's very nutrient rich, so it makes for a great source of minerals that trees need to grow on. So whenever people go and they walk around in the forest, they have these trails that they prefer you to stay on for that reason exactly, because if you're walking around outside the trail, there is a very high chance that you can accidentally get your foot stuck into one of these holes. And what happens is, as you're walking, you don't notice, and then these holes are covered with the leaves or the branches, and you step on it, and then your foot accidentally goes into the hole itself. And a lot of the times, it can lead to you spraining your ankle, or breaking your foot, or breaking your leg, and that can be placing yourself in a very, very bad situation, because it doesn't help that the forest itself is actually really soundproof. You can't hear people yelling it in it sometimes because it's so densely compact with trees, and the lava soil itself with all the pores from the holes just makes it very difficult for sound to travel. Like if you look at Aokigahara from a satellite perspective, you just see like a green blanket. So it's literally just an area about 14 square miles of forest that are just covered completely, and it's not somewhere you want to be and get lost. I've seen a couple of videos where people just go in and explore the forest, and they choose not to leave any type of markings, and they end up getting lost. And I know this one video that I saw, they got lost for a very long time in the forest. And if it weren't for the fact that they were able to find um, some street lights, they probably would have ended up spending the night in the actual forest, which is extremely terrifying in my opinion. So, me personally, when if and when I were to go to Aokigahara, I would more than likely stay on the beaten path. I would not want to go off of it because I have always had this supernatural link where I can sense and feel things. And I personally do not want any attachment to come home with me because a lot of the spirits in this forest are there because of they were in deep turmoil. They weren't in the best mind space when they went there. So I personally would just go and just see the forest, pay my respects to everyone who has unfortunately lost their lives there, and just make my way back. So, to talk a little bit about the suicides, this is probably as much as I'll talk about them. Back in 2003, they had found roughly about 105 bodies, which was at the peak of, I guess, the peak of how many people were committing suicide in the forest. It had broken the record, which had just been reached in 2002, which was 78 that year. So just within a 2-year period, they found almost 200 people dead in the forest. Things have been improving. In 2010, there were about 200 attempted suicides. However, only 54 were committed to the end. These are just estimates though, because they obviously have not found everybody in the forest, but this is just a rough estimate. However, back in 2010, 2011, they decided to no longer publish how many people were going and committing suicide in the forest, as basically as a deterrent to no longer, I guess, encourage people to come in here and do that, which I totally understand. I personally would have probably stopped announcing how many people they found dead in the forest much, much sooner than 2010, 2011. So, the reason why Aokigahara got its dark reputation was because it was popularized by the author Seiichiro Matsumoto, who released a novel named Nami no To, which comes out to Tower of Waves in English. In his book, he basically just talks about how to commit suicide, and in one of the chapters, if I'm not mistaken, he talked about doing it in a forest, and I think he talked about doing it in Aokigahara because it's such a remote location, and it would be very difficult for people to find you if you went there. But if I'm not mistaken, I don't think they publish his book anymore because of everything that happened. But however, they do have the old copy still circulating, so it's very you can find that out there if you wanted it. But I don't see why anybody would want something like that. So Aokigahara has always really had a dark history behind it. It's not so much because of the suicides, it's more because during the early 19th century, there was a practice in Japan that was called ubasute, uh, which was basically where families would take the elderly women in their family. It was usually the sons who would take them, and they would carry them all the way up to the mountains or to a forest, and they would abandon them there, and they were basically left to fend on their own. So this was primarily done because the families could no longer feed or support that elderly person. So it was kind of like just their way of saying, it's okay, just leave me here and I will die, and you will no longer have to worry about feeding the rest of your family, and I will no longer be a burden to you. So it was actually something that was done very often back then. So a lot of the spirits who are in this forest, a lot of it comes down to that from the old legends of families just leaving their elderly there. But many urban legends do state that the yurei, which are spirits, just roam the forests, and it just, when you look at videos and when you look at pictures, you can get that eerie sense from them. You can just feel that there's energy coming off of these photos, and they just give you such a dark vibe, but it's so, I don't know, it's just so perplexing to me. Like, you just look at them and you're just like, wow, like, there's just so much power coming from these photos. Like, you can, me personally, I love the photos that people take in Aokigahara. The forest looks beautiful. It's honestly so pretty. But the photos themselves, they just have such a powerful message behind them. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just looking more into it. Maybe it's just me, but I personally think that these photos that people take, it just captures the energy of the forest, and that energy just releases itself whenever you look at them. I mean, it can be like an actual photo or just when you're looking on the web. Like, I don't know. But this is just me, everyone. This is why I personally think this forest would just be like a 10 out of 10 on the spooky scale. Like, I would stay away from this place. It really creeps me out big time. So, everyone, thank you for tuning in on tonight's special Halloween edition spooky podcast. I decided to do Aokigahara because I personally think this place is extremely creepy, like 10 out of 10 creepiness. Like, just from the videos that I was watching to get some info off of it, and the documentaries and the pictures online, this place was really freaking creepy, and I personally would not step foot here even if you paid me. I will look at pictures, I will see it from afar, but I would not step foot in there. But yeah, so with that being said, again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope everyone has a safe Halloween. Please stay indoors, and I'll talk to you guys again later. Bye bye.